What's up, everybody? Welcome to Status Coup. I am Ron Placone, your host. It's Wednesday. Wednesday's gonna be my day here, which I'm really excited. Except for next week, I'm actually gonna be out of town next week. But starting, pretty much now, Wednesdays will be my regular day. We got a very stacked show for you today. First of all, we got another story in the child labor space from More Perfect Union. We're gonna be talking about that. We're gonna be talking about a good news. There's a little bit of good news in the municipal broadband space, so there's a little bit of good news. We're going to be talking about New Hampshire, which basically guaranteed us a rematch of 2020. We're going to be talking about the UAW endorsement. The UAW has endorsed Biden. We're going to unpack it. That's breaking news that just happened today. And we're going to start with a little bit of also good news. It's not normal that we start with good news, but we're going to start with some good news today. Smash the like button. Smash, smash, smash it. Show it who's boss. Leave a super chat so I can get to it at the end. I love chatting with you guys. And of course, we got a poll going. The poll is, should the UAW have endorsed Biden? Yes or no. So you can vote now or you can wait until we cover it, whatever you want to do. But to start, so the CFA, the California Faculty Association, they were going to go on strike. That happened this week. And I guess they actually went on strike. And it was pretty short because a colleague of mine texted me and said, "Hey, man, we're going on strike. I'm on strike." Then he texted me literally a couple hours later and he said, "Hey, it looks like we settled. Colin, let's go to the tweet." So, strike canceled. We have reached a tentative agreement. When we fight, we win. This is from the California Faculty Association. In case anyone forgot, strikes work. After months of negotiation, our movement for a better SCU has paid off. Our members have won a tentative agreement that includes raising the floor for our most vulnerable faculty, safer workplaces, and expanded parental leave. So here to unpack this with me is the CFA president, Dave Colnic. Dave, welcome to the show. How are you? Did I pronounce your last name right?
You got my name right, and I should say that I'm the CFA chapter president, one of the statewide officers. Our president is actually Charles Toombs out of San Diego State.
Thank you for that.
And he's a wonderful person. But yeah, we are so. Thanks for having me here. I know your colleague, and he was out there with us on the picket line in the rain on Monday. And yes, they work. It was quite a magical day. We're based out of Turlock. That's where Cal State Stanislaus is. And it's not known for a hotbed of activism, but we had quite a showing on Monday. So it was a blast. And throughout the state, on a really soggy day, under terrible conditions, thousands of people came out and demanded a just contract. And I think we have one. I'm also very excited about the strike. A couple of things in there are transformational and groundbreaking. They're things we didn't have.
So let's start at the beginning. So what kind of led up to this strike? What were the grievances? And then talk a little bit about the strike itself and the strategy. And then after that, we'll get to, the tentative agreement.
Sure, but I don't know how far you want me to go back. I go back to Donna history. We have a broken salary structure. We have some other broken things, but probably I'll go back to our last contract was agreed to in January of 2021 in the peak of COVID uncertainty. And what we did is we left several articles in that contract subject to reopener. We reopened on those in May of this year. And I don't want to get into all the nitty-gritty details, or else we will be here for a while. They concern salary, workload, health and safety issues, some questions around benefits, and some questions around policing on campus. So we wrapped those up, and we presented a proposal to management. This is after we surveyed our members, held a lot of focus groups. came up with what we think were reasonable proposals. They were reasonable, but they weren't status quo. CFA has made a commitment in the last 5 to 10 years now to really focus on anti-racism and social justice in everything that we do. And it has transformed our union, and I think it's transformed our ask. So it was uncomfortable for management to get these proposals for things that they had not previously seen in contracts. They weren't things like better and more frequent or more closer lactation facilities and gender inclusive restrooms. Those were in our demands. The other thing we did differently is we moved towards open bargaining, where in addition to our core bargaining team and our core sets of officers, we also held several caucuses that were open to anyone in the organization, any of our members. And we set it up early on that in our bargaining with administration or management, that we would allow people who wanted to be there either in person or via Zoom. So this was a fundamental change. Some of our bargaining sessions had well over 100 people at them.
So what was the strategy with the strike itself? Like, what was the game plan?
The game plan was, and again, we started off earlier, the whole deal with the public service sector employee union. We were statutorily bound to go through certain steps: sunshine the proposals, negotiate, declare impasse, mediation, and finally the fact finders. We went through all of that. We initially, towards the end of the semester, initiated 4 one-day strikes, and we'd hoped that those would be enough. Those were at various campuses: Cal State LA, Cal Poly Pomona, San Francisco State, and Sacramento State. These were enormous. We brought in people came in. The support throughout the labor community as well with our labor federations was remarkable. We were really hoping to get some significant movement. We did not. Management did not move at all. We met with them once in the fall, once more in January, and on the second day of the January meeting, they walked out on us and imposed a contract early on. And that cemented it was essentially a dare to do a system-wide strike. I don't think they thought we could pull it off. That's my feelings. We did. And I think we wound up with something, like I said, no negotiation. I think you get everything you want, but I am extremely pleased with what we received and what we the concessions we forced out of management.
So let's go to the agreement then. You called their bluff basically, and they came to the bargaining table. So what's the tentative agreement?
Tentative agreement is, and it's staged, an immediate retroactive 5% raise to last July 1st for all employees, including those whose start date was after July 1st this year. That's really important because in previous contracts, people would get hired, they'd start the semester, and they'd all of a sudden fall behind what their colleagues were making. So that was a really critical win for us. In the imposed contract, they proposed the same 5%, but only effective on January 31st. I mean, that's 7 months of 5%, which is critical for so many people. And then another 5% on July 1st of this year. There's a small contingency with that. We've been burned by contingencies in the past. This one, I'm not worried about the way it's structured. And really the desire of the CSU for labor peace, in part because of our striking strategy and things like that, suggests to me that that's not keeping me up at night. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So 10% total general salary increase, and for about a third of our members, what we call a service step increase of 2.65%. So if you're eligible for all of those, that's just over 13% in basically a year's time a raise. And I think that's pretty impressive. But the big news, what I think is transformational about our salary, is our two lowest categories of workers, what we call lecturers A and B. And lecturers are the term for faculty who are not on the tenure line. So you could be a lecturer, you could be a part-time lecturer for 20 years or 25 years in the CSU. Those were embarrassingly low. I mean, they were just awful. And this has been a problem, contract after contract after contract. They refused to negotiate that floor for our lectures. It was driving away good people. It was forcing others who wanted to stay because they love what they're doing to work 3 jobs in the community, maybe a job teaching at San Jose State, another job teaching at a community college, and then working as a server in a restaurant in between all that. I mean, it was just crazy.
Here's what I like to tell people, and I'll mention this. So I did some adjuncting, and it was just a side gig for me because I was a road comic at the time, and I would just adjunct some in the summertime when dates were slower. And I always tell people I got paid more money to perform a show at a college than I did to teach for a semester at one. And that's literally true. Not an embellishment.
I believe it entirely. So for a full-time lecture, this is somebody who's teaching 5 classes a semester. The floor was $54,000 in California.
Yes.
I mean, think about that. That's and that's a year's class. So that's 10 classes a year. That's shameful. And what we did to those two categories is what really makes me thrilled. We were able to get, again, retroactive to last July, a $3,000 boost to both our lectures A and B, and then this next July another $3,000 boost for lectures A, which really means we have effectively, even without that SSI, which some of them might also be eligible for, that service step increase.
Mm-hmm.
The lowest paid are guaranteed just over 20%, 21% increase by next year. And the next lowest are about 16 and change percent. And to me, that's life-changing. And it's also transformational in the sense that we have reset the terms of the contract debate. We can now address this salary structure, which is, quite frankly, has been exploitated for so long. And we're going to put an end to that.
Well, I mean, I'm glad to hear it. I mean, talking more broadly, we are entering I think we're entering a very concerning phase, and our mutual friend, I have these discussions with him quite frequently whenever we catch up, where it's education. We've lost the idea of education as a public good. And there's multiple factors at play there between student loan debt and between just faculty and teachers being taken for granted, staff being taken for granted, and various systems of exploitation. So, it's when you see a grad student strike succeed, when you see a faculty strike succeed, that slowly but surely we're fighting back.
Yeah, I agree. You're not going to get any argument from me on the losing the public good part of it. And I actually think this lecture, raising the floor, is going to help rebuild that. It is going to make it easier to get and keep good people in our profession, and it is a profession.
Absolutely.
Well, go on.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean. I thought you were done. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just thinking, and there's some other things that are pretty remarkable in this contract too. They're not quite as, I wouldn't say as monetarily significant, but several things we got administration to recognize their problems. The the recommended student to psychological counselor ratio is 1,500 to 1. On many campuses, it's twice that.
Okay.
And
who doesn't have 1,500 clients? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, they don't all have to use those facilities, but we should be able to be there if they can. This is not a problem we're going to fix overnight, but we have language for the first time in the contract recognizing that as an aspirational goal and a plan to meet that or to develop if we're not there in a few years. And that's really important to do for our students and our communities and the counselors themselves to stop the overwork. Similar language for class size creep, which is another thing that undermines the value of the public good. I mean, if I'm teaching 150 students for a class that's designed for a third or less than that, why don't they just watch the video on YouTube? I can't remember their names, and they don't remember mine. So, not that video is not a great way to do it, but there's other things we need to be doing, as I say on the podcast. But we have some language in there to stop the creep of our class sizes. Similar language, we increased the parental leave from a shamefully 6 weeks for a new parent to a less shameful, but still we have a ways to go, 10 weeks. It's a 67% gain. I want and we want a full semester. We still need to get there. And same with the lactation facilities and the gender inclusive restrooms. We didn't get everything we wanted. We didn't get all the way there, but we made inroads to that. The last thing I mentioned was policing. Every time we went to discuss policing on campus, the reply from management was it's out of scope. This time, we got them to agree that it's in scope and to guarantee a union or other representative when faculty speak with police on non-criminal matters. Of course, they already had their legal rights in criminal matters, but that goes a long way, I think, to reduce the fear of intimidation that some folks feel on our campuses. Okay. Last little bit might seem minor, but in the contract that was imposed on faculty, there was a really significant parking fee increase. That would have eaten up the raise for our the people, those lectures A and B's, and then some.
They don't give you guys parking?
What? Oh yeah, they charge us parking. No way. We have to pay to go to work or figure out something else.
Boy.
Yeah. And we kept that manageable as well. It's those little things that really matter at the end of the day to people's lives. And I'm thrilled that I was part of the process this time.
Well, congratulations. For anyone tuning in late, my guest is Dave Colnic, who is a CFA chapter president, CFA California Faculty Association, and they have reached a tentative agreement. They kind of formed a statewide strike, and they ended up, they came to the table. So congratulations, Dave. Thank you for sharing this information with us. Where can people go to learn more about this?
Calfac.org. So CALFAC.org. We have plenty of information. We're also on Instagram and Facebook and all Twitter and all the others. CFA_United.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. Thanks for doing what you do. Congratulations on the victory, and hopefully the good news continues. And thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It was wonderful. Keep up the good work you're doing too.
Cheers. Thank you, buddy.
All right, cheers.
Be well. There we go. That was Dave Colnic. And again, to learn more about the CFA, please do check out all those resources. It's nice to see a victory, and it's nice to see that striking does in fact work. Smash the like button. Leave me a super chat. I want to talk to you. We got a poll going, and we're going to get to that story in a second. We'll do a little bit of electoralism first and then go over to the UAW. So let's go to New Hampshire for a little bit, Colin. Let's go to New Hampshire for a bit. So Trump, it looks like we're going to see a rematch here because Trump won handily in New Hampshire. Although he has an interesting memory of what happened in New Hampshire the past two times. Let's go to the Trump video. Let's start there, Colin.
You know, we won New Hampshire 3 times now. Three. We win it every time. We win the primary. We win the generals. We've won it, and it's a very, very special place to me. It's very important.
So Trump didn't win the general in New Hampshire. He did not win New Hampshire in 2016 in the general. He did not win New Hampshire in 2020 in the general. He said it. Now, the way he said it, he kind of paused. I think he paused because he knew he was about to lie and just did it anyway. Or he genuinely doesn't remember what happened to him in New Hampshire. One of the two. And look, his faculties are questionable. So are Joe Biden's. Both of the candidates here, their faculties are in question, and that's not, I mean, that is just an observation. That is the case with Trump. That is the case with Biden. And boy, what a system that vomits out these two choices. But let's go to the other video where he gets a little mob-esque with Nikki Haley. Let's go to that. I haven't watched this yet. I'm watching this live. Jordan picked this one. So let's go to it. I'm excited to see it.
Renovation. These are very dishonest people, and you're always fighting them. And just a little note to Nikki. She's not going to win. She's not going to win. But if she did, she would be under investigation by those people in 15 minutes. And I could tell you 5 reasons why already. Not big reasons. A little stuff that she doesn't want to talk about. But she will be under investigation within minutes. And so would Ron have been. But he decided to get out. Now, Vivek, I don't think would be at all because he's perfect, right?
Okay. That was weird. That was bizarre. I am no fan of anybody he mentioned. I'm not a fan of Vivek. I'm not a fan of Nikki Haley. I'm certainly not a fan of Ron DeSantis. But that was interesting. Don't know what all he's referring to there. That's something. And boy, Vivek is just his willing foot soldier now, isn't he? He was just, wow. That guy was just willing. I mean, he threw Vivek under the bus, but now Vivek is just, Trump has a way of doing that, man. He has a way of, like, he'll throw someone under the bus and then they're just there right by his side saying, yes, I bow down to you. It's pretty frightening to see. Mitt Romney did it. Chris Christie did it. Now we got Vivek doing it. So that's going on over in New Hampshire. Over on the Democratic side, Joe Biden was written in. So Joe Biden blew off the New Hampshire primary. And the reason he did it was because he wanted to honor the order of South Carolina being first. And he also doesn't really care because he knows there's not going to be an honest primary. We all know this. There's not going to be an honest primary. But he won on a write-in. Colin, let's go to that article that indicates so a Joe Biden write-in. Biden write-in. It kind of just flows off the tongue. A Joe Biden write-in got 65,345 votes. Dean Phillips got 22,918. Marianne Williamson only got about 5,400 votes, which, and then other candidates got, less than that. So this just goes to show you, I mean, this is when they do things like write-ins and stuff like that. They do it when they can just make sure that the DNC approved candidate can get to where they want to be. I mean, the last time they did something big like that, even on a smaller scale, was the writing campaign that screwed over India Walton. India Walton was the progressive option for Buffalo mayor. She did make it to the general, and then they had this big writing campaign for the more corporate approved candidate, and that corporate approved candidate ended up winning. So they will really go to the mat. I mean, it's so interesting how the blue no matter who camp, they would be full-throatedly against this if people were writing in Bernie Sanders or writing in some kind of progressive option. But when it's their corporate approved candidates, they'll write in. They'll write in to prevent a progressive like India Walton. They'll write in to make sure Joe Biden definitely gets it. It's really interesting how they're selective there. It's really, really interesting. And let's go over to the Cenk Uygur situation here. Now, you guys know that I have my disagreements with Cenk Uygur. We're not going to rehash it all. Some of you have even told me that you think I've been a little too harsh on him. You're allowed to have that view. I mean, that's I took the Caruso thing pretty hard because I thought it was a very irresponsible thing to do. Still do feel that way. Not going to rehash it, but putting that aside, that I got my disagreements with the guy. Here's what he has been through as of recent. Let's go to that tweet. In South Carolina, Democratic Party said in an open court that they don't want to be associated with me because I'm a naturalized citizen. How is this not discrimination? Do I ever get to be equal? Or is this one group that is treated as unequal forever? Are we proud of this? Now, again, in this, I have my disagreements with the guy. In this case, I agree with him 110%. He is organizing a presidential campaign. He has a ground game. He has a staff going. He has a presence. He should be on the ballot. And I think that a naturalized citizen, which is what Cenk Uygur is, has every right in the world to run for office just like anyone else. And, again, got my disagreements with Cenk Uygur. Don't think his run for president is a very productive use of time for anybody involved. But guy's got a right to do it, and guy's got a right to be on the ballot. And I've seen some of the bigoted stuff he has faced, and I think it is very wrong. And I also think that, when people are saying, people are moving the goalposts, saying stuff like, should anyone just be able to come here and run for president? Blah, blah, blah. He's not some random person who just showed up here and goes, I'm going to run for president. The guy has lived in the United States, at least to the best of my knowledge, he's lived in the United States for most of his life. He is a naturalized citizen. And I think a naturalized citizen should have every rights as any other citizen. And guess what? That involves being able to run for office. So, yeah, I think he should be able to run for president. And I think he should be on the ballot. So, that was going to be our poll today. So here's a little bit of insider baseball. I'll tell you guys, my personal preparation for Status Coup is what I do is I'll kind of go through some stories. I'll kind of send some ideas off to Jordan or Colin. Colin will insert some stuff. Jordan will insert some stuff. And then I usually try to think of a poll because I like to do the polls. I think it's a fun thing. And my poll was going to be, do you agree that a naturalized citizen should be able to run for president? Yes or no? And then usually after I do that, I'll go to the beach. I'll run around a little bit. I'll come home, get cleaned up. And then by then it's time to prep a little more for the show, make sure everything's good. And then it's go time, people. So I did that today. And while I was at the beach, I got something breaking from Jordan. And that breaking news was the UAW news. So that ended up, when I saw that, I was like, well, that's definitely got to be the leading story today. And that should be the poll. So I wanted to still mention the Cenk Uygur thing, but the UAW got the poll today because I feel like that's the biggest story. And I didn't really get to see the chat much yet, but it seems like y'all got a lot to say about it, which, by the way, please do leave a super chat. It helps keep the show on the air. But let's go to our leading story today, and then we'll do two shorties to end it, short stories. So let's go to the UAW situation. Let's go to the press release first, Colin, and then we will go to the video. The UAW has endorsed Joe Biden, and my first instinct is a very weird choice of timing. I think it's very early, And I talked about this with John Nichols on my podcast 1000, which 1000 with Ron Placone, wherever you get your pods. I said, look, I don't think they should endorse anybody until they get a concession list longer than a CVS receipt. I still feel that way. So let's go right to it. Colin, if you don't have the article, let's just go straight to the video. Or is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. UAW endorses Joe Biden for president. On Wednesday, January 24th, that's today, hundreds of UAW members, leaders, activists gathered at the union's National Community Action Program conference. The UAW announced its endorsement of Joe Biden for president of the United States. Addressing the assembled members, UAW President Shawn Fain spoke to the issues facing the working class and the strategic choice ahead of the 2024 presidential election. All right, let's go to the video. Let's hit the video. And let's see what they have to say here. And then, of course, we're going to unpack it, folks. We're going to unpack it.
Donald Trump said, and I quote, "I think that the unions are really, really hurting very badly what's going on with the auto industry," end of quote. Joe Biden, having helped save the auto industry, said the nation bet on the American auto workers and won. In 2015, when he was first running for president, Trump went even further. He said the concessions we took weren't enough. He wanted to do a rotation in the auto industry of the jobs in Michigan and the Midwest, so union auto workers would be begging for their jobs back at lower pay. He wanted to put the race to the bottom on steroids to screw the American working class. Joe Biden bet on the American worker while Donald Trump blamed the American worker. Today, I'm proud to stand up here with your International Executive Board and announce that the UAW is endorsing Joe Biden for President of the United States. And I am honored now to invite President Joe Biden to come and address our great union and join us in our fight for economic and social justice for the UAW and the entire working class. So UAW family, let's stand up and welcome the man who stood up for us. Please welcome the current President of the United States. We will re-elect Joe Biden.
Hello, UAW.
He knew where he was. That's good.
The whole country benefits from what you do. You know, please take a seat if you have one. You're tough as they come, starting with your president, Shawn Fain, a leader with backbone, a backbone like a ramrod. Every time I'd walk out of my grandfather Finnegan's house up in Scranton, he'd yell, "Joey, keep the faith." My grandmother would come to the door and say, "No, Joey, spread it. Let's spread the faith."
That was one of the most generic things I've ever seen from Joe Biden. So first of all, let's start there. Joe Biden complimented President Fain, did a whole folksy, "Oh, take your seat. I'm a humble guy. I'm a man of the people." And then he gave a Scranton story. That was like the most generic paint by numbers address, and totally par for the course for Joe Biden. Now, let's go from this start to finish. Now, my short, Cliff Notes thing here, I disagree with their decision to endorse Joe Biden so early. And I disagree, just with the decision in general. My whole thing was I don't think they should endorse anyone until they get, again, a list of concessions longer than a frickin' CVS receipt. And if they don't get that, I think they should just endorse nobody. Now, let's unpack it. I understand that when you are such a big union there is pressure to endorse. I also understand that when it comes to president, you are going to have two choices that are to the right of Reagan. I get that. When Shawn Fain was talking about Donald Trump, everything he said was right on. Everything he said was 100% right on. But Joe Biden has not necessarily been a friend to the working class other than just, friendly gestures. I mean, yeah, he showed up there. He spoke to the UAW. Okay, he did that. But $15 minimum wage, not delivered. He crushed a rail strike. This guy has been no friend to labor. He started his campaign with a bunch of Comcast executives. He's not a friend to labor. And I get it. Of course, Donald Trump isn't either. Of course. But we haven't even had a primary yet. The primary is, by definition, still going on. It's not much of a primary, mind you, but it is still, by definition, going on, and they already endorsed. And look, also, I'll say this. I like Shawn Fain. I still do. Shawn Fain has done a lot of really great things as of recent. One of them is, first of all, supporting LGBTQ rights, wearing the Eat the Rich t-shirt, calling out the billionaire class. And here's a big one, calling for a ceasefire. Now, this reminds us of the days of past where union leaders would be outspoken about issues of war and peace. This is a callback to those times. Well, Joe Biden doesn't support a ceasefire. We know this. He's Genocide Joe. And Joe Biden could, with the snap of a finger, demand a ceasefire. Say, hey, Israel, we're cutting off the funds. We need a ceasefire now. He's not doing that. Most of the American people want it. The UAW has called for it. Most of the countries around the world have called for it. There's a small handful of people in government, small handful in the Congress, small handful in the Senate, who have called for it, which just goes to show you how much public opinion is taken into account for anything. Joe Biden doesn't support that. So what are you getting out of him for this endorsement? I mean, how powerful would it have been? We are in a big union moment, a huge union moment. And there's a huge spotlight, especially on the UAW right now. How big would it have been if they said, you know what, with everything going on in the world, and you take a look back at this history, we can't in good conscience give an endorsement yet. And we won't until these concessions are made. And man, how powerful would it be if one of those concessions was, we demand a ceasefire. You endorse a ceasefire. You use your bully pulpit to enact a ceasefire. We'll give you our endorsement. How powerful would that be if they would have taken that stand? And, and look, the UAW is not a dictatorship. This decision was made collectively. They met in D.C. I don't know if it was necessarily every member voting, but it was, the all the people with different positions met, and I would imagine deliberated on this. But I don't understand why a decision had to be made so soon. And I certainly don't understand why a decision would be made without concessions. That does not add up to me. I understand that, well, you have two choices to the right of Reagan. I get that. But man, why would you do it so soon? Why would you do it without concessions? Why would you do it right in the spotlight of demanding a ceasefire, which was an amazing thing? And then here you are endorsing somebody who clearly doesn't endorse a ceasefire. So I don't understand the preemptive endorsement, especially when we're not even in the general. We're not even in the general. And how powerful would it have been if they would have held out? And you know what this makes me think of? There's a meme out there, and it shows, I'm sure you guys have seen it, but it's there's a group of people standing on like a little cliff, and they're standing on a board, and there's a bunch of them standing on the board, and on the other end of the board is, the politician, and they're wax philosophizing towards the people. And then a bunch of people are standing there, and those people standing there is what keeps the board in place. And the purpose of the meme is they're like, the people don't realize the power that they do have. And even though we're a freaking oligarchy, we still have collective power in a union. We still have power. I mean, hey, we had a story earlier today about how unions work and how striking works. And that's where our power's at. Our power is in striking. Our power is in protests. Our power is in movements. Our power is in working class unity. And I think that in endorsing Joe Biden in this moment, the UAW, which, by the way, is an organization I still am a big fan of, I'm still a supporter of, but I think this decision was the wrong one. And I think at the very least, they should have waited to get a lot of concessions before. I mean, hey, if Joe Biden made a bunch of concessions, now, of course, you run the risk he's going to break all those promises. He's good at that. Which makes him exactly like every other president we've ever had, but nonetheless. But if you got a list of concessions, well, that's one thing. And maybe there's some concessions we don't know about yet. I mean, I'll give that grace there. Maybe there's some concessions we're not even aware of. But I do not understand the timing. I do not understand why it's so preemptive. And I certainly don't understand in the big scale of things, why there wouldn't be certain things that were just non-negotiables, ceasefire being among them, to say, hey, you want our endorsement, come get it. Because I think, look, there's a number of things that could happen in this election. Now, I think it's still way too early on to be making any type of predictions because there's still so much time between now and November. And we live in a very, very unpredictable time. The society's nuts right now. We know this. But here's a couple possibilities. First of all, I think we're living in a time where nobody is going to accept election results anymore. If Trump wins, it will be because of Russia. If Biden wins, it will be because of, whatever the Stop the Steal conspiracy theory is going to be next time. We are living through that era. And look, our election systems have a lot of problems. We are not great. We purge rolls. I mean, the list goes on and on. But here's the truth. In 2016, Donald Trump won the election. In 2020, Joe Biden won the election. That's the truth. But we're living in a time where, people are going to associate the facts they want to cling on to, however they're going to, and they're not going to accept election results. That's very possible. Another thing that's very possible, I think Joe Biden's kind of phoning in the primary because he knows there's not really going to be one. And I think he may just phone in the general, in which case I think Trump's going to win. I mean, here's the thing, like Joe Biden is not a very strong incumbent. Obviously, his poll numbers are going less and less. And we are at a time as a society. Here's the analogy I like to bring up. Sometimes you see a sports club and it's very obvious they're in the decline. Like the team is just not doing great for whatever reason. They're not drafting well. They're not recruiting well. Maybe their salary cap's all messed up if it's a professional team. Maybe they're just losing recruits to other schools if it's a college team. And because they're spiraling, they just fire the head coach every couple years. Every couple years, they're just getting a new head coach going, I guess this is the problem. And the problem is much deeper than that. Sure, the head coach may be a problem. And in this analogy, the head coach is the problem because, we've had terrible presidents. But they're just firing the head coach. I feel like as a society, that's where the United States is. Where every 4 years, we live in the United States of amnesia because things are so bad. Every 4 years, you're going to have a lot of general people that are just going to take a chance on whatever the opposition is because their lives have not gotten any better. So if a Democrat's in office, the Republicans can want a stale ham sandwich and win. If the Republicans are in office, the Democrats can run a stale ham sandwich and win. You get the idea. That could be the era we're entering. And when you factor in the lesser of two evils-ism, which when you keep doing lesser of two evils, keep in mind, both sides get more and more evil. That's the problem with that. Both sides get more and more evil. So when you keep doing that and you're living in an age where it's just going to be a volley back and forth, the choices are going to continue to get even worse and worse. Which, I mean, we're already significantly to the right of Reagan with both of these choices. So those are a number of things that could play out in this election, especially it's pretty certain at this point, unless something big changes, it's going to be a Trump-Biden rematch. So we're going to do a couple kind of good news stories, which we do have. Oh, actually, wait, no, I take that back. We got one bad news story, one good news story. We'll do two brief stories, and then we'll get to the poll, which, by the way, feel free to leave a super chat. I will get to all your super chats. Let's talk about why you voted the way you did. Did you vote yes? Did you vote no? Again, the question of the poll, should the UAW have endorsed Joe Biden? And by the way, it's a yes or no, but also we can factor timing in. So you can say, even if your answer is, well, I could have seen them endorsing him later. If that's your point of view, still vote no, because we're factoring in that they did it now. You know what I mean? All right, you guys get it. But feel free to give an explanation. I will get to all your super chats. I'm a bad news first kind of guy. So let's go to the more perfect union story, Colin. First of all, to set this up on the tee, I have long entertained the idea, and I really hope I'm wrong on this. This falls into the holy shit, I hope I'm wrong category. But I feel like we are going to see a full return of child labor before we see living wages in this country, because they're just going to lead on that to prevent living wages. They're just going to lean more and more on child labor to not pay living wages. And it is frightening. I mean, keep in mind, the average American worker already has less time off than a medieval peasant. We work more than they did during the robber baron days. Our work culture is absolutely batshit nuts. And now we're seeing child labor return. We've covered various child labor violations on this show, hundreds of violations at McDonald's, hundreds of violations elsewhere. Well, this is going on in Florida. Ron DeSantis is Florida. Let's go to the video.
As well. We've been weakening our society since before my time. I started working at like 13 years old, a full-time job. I wrestled. I played every sport you can imagine. So the idea that they can't afford to have these kids do this is an anomaly for me in my mind. If there's an issue with inflation, we should address that with the federal government, not the state of Florida. So I appreciate you running this bill. You guys continue doing the great work and help change the youth out there to have them start working full time. Thanks.
Great. Rep. Barrington, you're up.
So Florida House Committee has approved a GOP bill to let bosses schedule 16 and 17-year-olds for over 8 hours on a school night and over 30 hours a week. That's a full-time job. And we've been weakening our society. Look, what kind of society is a society that allows child labor? What kind of a society is that? And now sometimes people push back on this and they're like, oh, you have a problem with high school kids having part-time jobs? No, I don't have a problem with that. I had a part-time job in high school. It wasn't 30 hours a week. When they are doing this with children, they're trying to not pay living wages. They're trying to exploit child labor to avoid living wages. And that's my prediction coming to fruition, that they're going to full on bring back child labor, hide it under the guise of society and freedom to avoid paying living wages. And we have a very warped society that will go along with it. I mean, I remember, so this is one, for instance. I have family in Italy. Now, over in Italy, there aren't one of the things that they do have that's kind of not the greatest thing is there's not a ton of jobs for young people. if you kind of want like just a part-time job or something like that, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get. Now, it might not even be easy in the United States anymore. I couldn't tell you directly because I'm not in high school, but over there they have there's not a ton of opportunities for young people to find, seasonal work and stuff like that, unless your family runs a business. Here's the other side of it, though. In Italy, they can go to college for free, and they can. So, I always say, I made a joke once on Twitter where I'm like, I was talking to my Italian cousin who was able to get a free education and become a lawyer, and now he has a really nice home and a nice car. And he said to me, man, if only I could have scooped gelato when I was 14, I really would have lived, you know? And so people like literally kept pushing back on that. And they kept saying, it's a crisis. It's a crisis. And I'm like, look, I see where you're coming from. I'm just saying, I feel like it's a much better opportunity for a young person when they can go to school for free and they have all these opportunities in the entirety of the EU versus, oh, there aren't as many minimum wage jobs available. I feel like one opportunity supersedes the other. And we just were not having a meeting of the minds. Like we went back and forth, and eventually I had to just be like, look, dude, you think an amazing opportunity for a young person is working in fast food. I think an amazing opportunity for a young person is being able to go to college and not go into a ton of debt. We see things differently. I don't know what to tell you. We see things differently. And my point in bringing that up, and again, there's nothing wrong with working in fast food or anything like that. My point in bringing that up is just saying we have a society that is so conditioned to say, yes, you should just work and work and work and work, and that's why you're here, that we have a society that will passively accept child labor coming back. We don't have a society that would say, wait a second, this isn't just somebody has a job a few hours a week while they're in high school. This is straight up bringing back child labor. And we also have a society that is crushing families. There's a ton of high schoolers and even younger than that. They have jobs because they need them to support the family, because the parent is working 2 and 3 jobs to survive, and it's not enough. So we have a society that is also crushing people into submission. And we also have a society that maybe they're not completely crushed into submission, but they're going to passively accept it. And that's the freaking crisis. So there's another story that supports the idea that we're going to see child labor come back full throttle before we see living wages. I do believe that will be the case. I sincerely hope I'm wrong. And I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure I end up being wrong on that one. But here is a little bit of good news. Dare I give you a little bit of good news? Now, you guys know me. One of the issues I'm very, very passionate about is municipal broadband. Municipal broadband, quick nuts and bolts, is city-owned internet. It's basically when your internet is a utility, the same way your water is, or something like that, or your trash pickup. And wherever municipal broadband has happened throughout the country, residents are offered better internet at a better price. They get better quality internet than the big cable companies offer at a better price. Why would this be? Well, because guess what, folks? Internet infrastructure, it's hard, but it's not necessarily rocket science. And if your main concern is giving a utility to your residents, you're going to do a better job than a for-profit cable company that doesn't give a hoot about infrastructure. So Comcast, they don't invest in infrastructure. If a neighborhood looks like they won't make enough money, they just don't give a hoot. They don't invest there. That's how AT&T works. That's how Comcast works. That's how all the big cable companies work. And they basically have organized duopoly with territories with each other. They're run a lot like the mob, to tell you the truth. Municipal broadband, the way I like to sum it up, whether you are the mayor, the richest resident, or the poorest, everybody wants their porn to load fast. So municipal broadband, 100% of the time, offers residents better internet at a better price. Well, here's a little bit of good news from the Institute of Local Self-Reliance. As the new year begins, the Institute of Local Self-Reliance announced today its latest tally of municipal broadband networks shows a dramatic surge in the number of communities building publicly owned, locally controlled high-speed internet infrastructure. There's going to be 40 new municipal networks in California alone. Now, one of the reasons for this in California is because Gavin Newsom did sign the municipal broadband bill that allows construction like this to happen. So it's happening in California. Basically, they're going to think of it, it's like a giant spine of internet connectivity, orchestrated by the state. And then your community can connect to that spine and get high quality internet. So that's why that's happening. Another place where there's a bunch of community broadband happening is throughout the state of Tennessee. Now, here's why that is happening. They highlight Vermont here. They highlight Iowa. We're not going to go through every example, but I'll mention why Tennessee has so much going on. The reason, okay, so here's something. They bring up Knoxville here, which of course is in Tennessee. The reason Tennessee has so much going on is because Chattanooga, Tennessee, not a lot of people know this, but Chattanooga, Tennessee has some of the best internet, not just in the United States, but in the world. Why is that? Because back in 2014, they had this big power grid in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they had some foresight. They started a municipal broadband project. So in Chattanooga, Tennessee, residents have some of the best internet in the world, and they pay an average of $65 a month for it. All because they invested in a municipal broadband project. And as the article from Institute of Local Self-Reliance points out, whether you are in the Deep South or the Midwest or the coast or California, everyone's getting on board with municipal broadband. This is not a left issue. This is not a right issue. This is an accessibility issue. And this is a thinking of the future issue. So a little bit of good news. We're seeing a rise of this. You can go to the Institute of Local Self-Reliance to learn more. And their website is ilsr.org. So a little bit of good news. If you want to bring municipal broadband to your neighborhood, feel free to email me directly. I will share with you all the resources I have. I fought for municipal broadband in Pasadena when I lived there. I'm currently fighting for it in San Pedro, where I live now. It's been a long, hard road because now that I live in San Pedro, I actually have to deal with LA proper, which is even a harder nut to crack, so to speak. But it's worth the struggle. It really is. And some people that I've been in contact with over the years have seen more progress than I have. And that really excites me. I'm really stoked for that. And I will try to help you out any way I can. At one point, I tried to start a nonprofit to basically form different community task force all over the country for municipal broadband. And unfortunately, I've not been successful in building that. But at one point, it was something I was trying to do. So a little bit of good news to end with a little bit of, with a little bit of hope here. A little bit of hope in the digital rights space. You know how that goes. Guys, I will go to the super chat now. Thank you. So actually, before I go to the super chat, I'll let you know what I got going on. So Chicago, mark your calendars. This is just announced, and I just got the ticket link. I'm going to add it to my website as soon as I'm done here. So give it a little bit, but you can get tickets at ronplacone.com. I got a screening in Chicago on February 16th. There's the flyer for it. My movie will be screening at Reggie's, which is one of the coolest venues in Chicago. And then some punk bands are going to play. Silver Abuse, which is actually the longest running punk band in all of Chicago. They've been around for 40 years. Tractor Boy and Acton's Dictum. I hope I'm saying that right. And those are a bunch of left-wing punk bands in Chicago. So you can go, you can catch my movie, and you can discover some lefty punk rock in Chicago. That's happening on February 16th. Tickets will be available at my website later today. It literally, this just happened. But later today, those tickets will be available at ronplacone.com. Grab them, and I hope you love my movie. Also, my movie is screening in Tucson, Arizona on February 22nd. February 29th, my movie is screening in Omaha, Nebraska. March 20th, my movie is screening in Washington, D.C., and that's free. D.C., you really lucked out. Get a free screening of Left at Wall. March 22nd, I'll be doing a show, a screening, and a Q&A in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Get your tickets now, Pittsburgh. I can't wait to see you. April 14th, Los Angeles, baby. We're doing a screening in Los Angeles. That's going to be a show with a bunch of cast members, a screening, and a Q&A. Get your tickets now, ronplacone.com. Also, on January 30th, I'm going to be out of town next week, but on January 30th, my new vertical series, Frank Azzurri, premieres right here on Status Coup. The first episode drops. Some of you members have already seen it, but the first episode drops on January 30th. We're going to do a behind-the-scenes chat, Drew and myself. Drew's the guy next to me. That's Andrew Saxida, who makes Frank Zazuri with me. We're going to be doing a post-episode chat. We'll be doing that for every episode right here on Status Coup. First episode drops January 30th. We're going to drop them every other week, and the first season is going to be 8 episodes. It's going to be the first scripted series over at Status Coup. And thank you so much for allowing us to grow. We cannot grow without your support. So if you are able, please consider becoming a member here at Status Coup. You can go to statuscoup.com/join for just $5 or $10 a month. You are help supporting on-the-ground journalism. Status Lou is going back to East Palestine. There's been a lot of developments in East Palestine. No one's going on the ground there, so it's up to Status Lou. Savage Joy has been on the ground there. We've had Savage Joy on this show. None of the corporate outlets are going there, so it's up to independent journalists to go to East Palestine on their own dime. So please, if you are able, join Status Coup so you can continue to fund on-the-ground journalism. We're also going to be on the ground a lot more because it's an election season, folks. So if you are able, statuscoup.com/join. Let me go to the super chat. What's up, Chris? Thank you for bringing this up, albeit very sad. Hey, Ron, what's up, Chris? Good to see you. Today, I'd like to honor our legendary super moderator, Paul XBSOG, who passed away about a year ago. Super chats are quite welcome. Thank you for that, Chris. Yeah, man, I miss Paul. He was a moderator over here on Status Coup. He was all over the indie left space, and yeah, he was just a genuinely good guy. And I was just about to meet him in person. He was going to come to my Detroit show, and then he passed. I think, yeah, it's been about a year. So it was about. I think the Detroit show had just been announced, because I was in Detroit in June, and I was all excited to meet him in person, and then he passed away. So yeah, that's rest in power, Paul, and we do miss you here very much. So thank you for that, Chris. David Hunter, New York City, how's it going? Hope all's going well in New York. Joe Biden denied railroad workers their constitutional right to unionize. Yes. Joe Biden denied railroad workers sick pay. Yes. The UAW made a huge mistake. I agree. I mean, this is not. And why did they have to do it this early? Like, I just don't get it. Yeah, I mean, we'll go to the results here in just a second. Chris responds to this. Personally, I think the railroads should be nationalized and the workers become members of the Federal Employees Union. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Tom, what's up, buddy? Biden's voting record while he was in Congress was for exporting our industry base and the jobs that went with it overseas. He's never been a pro-working man ever. Yeah, he has 40 years of bad choice. Well, not bad choices, but also this is who he is. He has 40 years of proof that he is just a corporatist. He's a right-winger. He's an anti-worker guy. There's 40 years of receipts there. He has enough skeletons in his closet. He doesn't need to decorate for Halloween. So I hear you, Tom. Michael Mike, the Russian bot. I love your name. That's great. Is it possible for the membership to have a recall referendum on their endorsement? Iowa is 1% of the population, and New Hampshire is smaller. They should be meaningless. It should be one person, one vote. Absolutely. It should be one person, one vote. The Electoral College should not exist. And I don't understand any arguments for the Electoral College. None of them make any sense. When people say, oh, well, if the Electoral College didn't exist, New York and California would just decide our elections. First of all, that's so insulting to everybody in every state, because you're making the assumption that everybody in every state votes the same way. You're making the assumption that everyone in California votes exactly the same, that everyone in Iowa votes exactly the same, that everyone in New York votes exactly the same. They don't. So if by California and New York deciding the elections, you mean people decide the elections, you have to ask yourself, why are you opposed to people deciding elections? Shouldn't people decide the elections? Shouldn't the candidate with the most votes win the election? So that whole, if we didn't have the Electoral College, that's nonsense. That's basically code for, I don't think people should decide elections. So, and also, so to your question, Mike, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible for the membership. I'd imagine there's some kind of system in place, but I can't speak to the details of that. But if there isn't some kind of thing in place, there should be. I mean, the members should decide on endorsements. Everyone should get a say. Nadia, what's up? Great to see you. Good to hear from you. Biden's record on labor has been a total vacuum. Googling around in articles about his Senate career don't show me his ever having any involvement in labor. His rail strike move looks bad. But he's Amway Joe, though. He took a train. Nadia, I think you are forgetting Joe Biden at one point took a train. He had to take a train from Delaware. That's his big thing. He's a working guy because he took a train once. Don't forget he took a train once. No, I totally, I hear you. Let's see. Chris, what's up? In memory of Paul XBSOG, you inspired many and were a friend to comrades you never met. May you rest in power and never have to get in the middle of a chat spat again. Thank you for your kindness. That's very nice, Chris. Thank you for sharing that today. And yeah, Paul was one of a kind, and we do miss him very much, even though, yeah, I like so many others, never got to meet him in person. I know at one point we were trying to get in touch with some of his family. I don't know if that ever happened, but yeah, Paul was just, he was one of those, for instances where even as toxic as online spaces can be, and God knows they can be very toxic, there are still some moments of goodness that can come of them. And there are some, with all the bad, there is a lot of good too. And the good is obviously Status Coup existing. The good for me personally, when I go on the road and I get to meet you guys in person, that's amazing. It's incredible. It's such a cool thing when I get to meet you all in person. And by the way, there's already been some shows announced. I just mentioned them. So get your tickets now at ronplacone.com. Last year in 2023, I had Status Coup fam at every single show that includes Edinburgh, Scotland. So this year, I'm going to be touring the UK again. And I'm going to be doing some domestic stuff. We're going to have more shows announced really soon. I want to see Status Coup fam at every show. Let's keep that momentum going. We had it in 23. Let's keep it now in 2024. And guys, let's go to the results of the poll to end the show today. Colin, where did we land? Well, first of all, Colin, what is your personal vote?
My personal vote is at minimum no for now, or withholding until later. Like you had mentioned,
Me
I don't
too.
see why
Yeah.
to do it both this early, and I'd posit to you the question of, like, do they even have to endorse somebody? Like, if both
Right.
candidates are anti-labor, then why do you have to endorse either? But I don't know the minutia of that, especially with the UAW specifically, if like the membership votes on that or just the leadership, or if it's just how that all works.
Yeah. There's still some questions to be had there, but I think just the obvious of like why this early is just such an obvious question. So yeah, I mean, I'm a no vote with you. So let's go to our results.
Yes, the results after 286 votes, we have 17% say yes and 82% say no.
Okay. And to the 17%, I mean, I would just be curious some of your reasons. I think obviously, like I personally am a no vote. I unpacked why. Again, I understand all the kind of bullet points where it's like, well, the other option is Trump, and all the things Shawn Fain listed about Trump being very anti-worker. Those are all true. So I get that. I get that, where it's like, I mean, Donald Trump probably wouldn't even show up at a UAW thing. I mean, he would if you complimented his hair first or something. I honestly think Donald Trump stands for absolutely nothing. I honestly think, like, anyone, I still feel that way. I think it all, if Donald Trump becomes president again, just pay attention to who he surrounds himself with, because that's where the real danger is. It's all who he surrounds, and he'll surround himself with awful people, clearly. But pay more attention to that, because Donald Trump stands for absolutely nothing. He is just an empty vacuum to be filled by whoever's around him. Anyway, I get all that. But again, like, why do you have to endorse this soon? Joe Biden is no friend to labor. That's been demonstrated. Yeah. So I'm a no vote. This is cool. Let me go to this real quick. JD, what's up? JD Party Hat. Okay, Ron, I sent you a request for more info regarding local broadband via your contact form on your website. I will send you some more info. I'll share with you what I got. I'll share with you a speech that I made at my city council meeting. And I really hope you will keep me posted on the progress you make. And honestly, I hope you have an easier road than I've had. I mean, I had an easier shot in Pasadena because Pasadena is its own city. San Pedro is not its own city. So I have to deal with basically the city of LA. And my path through San Pedro is trying to do it via a community, like a neighborhood council, which is possible. But that's going to take a really heavy lift, and you're going to have to get the city council member on board with that. I have a few ideas up my sleeve. I'll go into more detail in a more appropriate forum, in a more appropriate time. But anyway, I have a few ideas floating around. Chris, thank you very much for your thoughts. David, thank you for your thoughts. Nadia, thank you for your thoughts. Always great to hear from y'all. Chris, thank you very much for that regarding Paul. And yeah, let's dedicate this episode to Paul. Paul, rest in power. We do miss you very much. And, things just aren't quite the same without you, but we miss you very much. And in your honor, we're going to continue to do the absolute best we can as an outlet to bring you stories that the corporate media is neglecting, and to bring you stories that are important for issues of labor, are important to the working class, are important to the marginalized among us, are important to just taking this country in a better direction. And that's what we do over here at Status Coup. So thank you all so much for that. Thank you for being here today. I will miss you next week, but I'll be back very soon after that. But I'm going to be traveling next week. But I hope you all enjoy Frank Azzurri. I'll be available on the internet, so I'll see you there. RonPlacone.com is my website for all show tickets, and you can follow me online at Ron Placone on all the platforms. And this is Ron Placone for Status Coup, signing out.